It was not the words, "do not admit," that knocked the air out of me. It was seeing my face on a sheet of paper in a stranger's hands, like I was some danger waiting to happen. Like I was a crazed ex or a wedding crasher. The thing is, it was not a stranger's wedding. It was my daughter's wedding. My adopted daughter. The girl who used to call me dad in her sleep. I parked 2 blocks away because I knew the place would be packed. Emily always joked that I walked like an old man carrying too many secrets in his pockets. So I took my time. I noticed the string quartet trying to look important. I noticed a flower arch that probably cost more than a used car. Guests sipped champagne like they were extras in a streaming show. I was not expecting a red carpet. I was not expecting a speech. I was not even expecting a front row seat. I was only expecting to be let through the gate. A security guard waited by the entrance. Buzz cut. Dark glasses. Shoulders like a refrigerator. He raised a clipboard like it was a badge. "Name, sir." I smiled because I wanted this to be easy. "Mark. Emily's father." He flipped a page, scanned, and then he paused. That tiny pause told me more than any speech could. He lifted the clipboard and showed me a page. There was my driver's license photo, blown up and boxed in red. Under it, typed neat as a label maker, "Do not admit." "Is this a joke?" I asked. I tried to smile. It felt wrong on my face. He did not blink. "I have strict instructions, sir." Strict instructions. I repeated the words, like I had to hear them out loud to believe them. "From who?" "The bride," he said. I stood there a few seconds longer than a man should. Some part of me waited for someone to come running out. Emily. Lisa. Maybe someone from the groom's side who knew the whole story and would say, "Hold on. That is her father." Nobody came. The only sound was the soft clink of silverware from inside the tent and the wind stirring overpriced petals along the path. I nodded once. I turned around. I walked away. No scene. No yelling. No broken glass. No begging. I got in my car and stared at the steering wheel for a full minute before I even turned the key. That was when the hurt settled in. Not the loud kind. The kind that seeps into your bones. The kind that whispers, "She did not forget you. She erased you." I drove home with the radio off. I called no one. I pulled into the driveway of the house I paid for, the house where I raised her. I thought about the field trips I covered, the therapy bills when her biological father walked out, the nights I listened after college rejections, and the day I sat with her to fill out the free application for federal student aid because her mother was too busy. Inside, I hung up the jacket Emily chose for me. I did not even loosen the tie. I stood in the hallway and looked at the frames on the wall. Her kindergarten photo. Her first piano recital. That weekend trip to Denver when a hailstorm chased us into a doorway, and she asked if I would still love her if she turned into an icicle. I stood there a long time. Here is the part that may not make sense unless you have been here. I did not cry. I did not shout. I just felt empty. The words on that page were not invited. They were not, "Please do not come." They were, "Do not admit." Like I was something shameful that needed to be kept outside so she could marry into money without a past. If you are still listening, I will say one thing. Most people never hit that subscribe button. But if this hits you, if you have ever been written out of a life you helped build, subscribing helps us tell more stories like this. And maybe it helps someone out there feel less alone. Back in my living room, I poured one drink. Just one. The whiskey burned more than usual. Not because it was bad. It was not. It burned because I had earned it today. I opened the cabinet where the old papers are. The adoption certificate. The life insurance policy. At the bottom, the folder with one line printed in bold. Irrevocable trust. Emily. She had forgotten that I kept it. I had not. The room was dim. I left one lamp on. The silence did not feel calm. It felt clinical, like someone had taken a scalpel to 22 years of my life and left neat stitches where the good parts used to be. I drifted to the bookshelf. I was not looking for anything, but my eyes always land in the same places when I am trying not to feel too much. There is a drawing in a plastic frame. Crayon hearts. Stick figures. Shaky letters. Me and my dad. She misspelled it back then. I left it that way. Next to it, her kindergarten picture, pigtails sticking out like ant antennae. Prom night. Sneakers under the dress because I told her to never wear pain for other people's expectations. College graduation. She made me put on that oversized cap because she said it would make me look less serious for one day. I took another sip and pulled the ottoman closer to the bottom shelf. There is a leather-bound album she gave me on her 16th birthday. On the cover it says, "For the man who stayed." I never showed it to anyone. Not to her mother. Not to my brother. Not even back to her. It was ours. Our history. In every photo, you can see my hands. Holding the bike seat steady. Catching her during a trust fall at camp. High-fiving her after she passed her driving test. Holding up her college acceptance letter. Always lifting. Always catching. Always holding. Apparently no longer welcome. I closed the album and stood up slow. I slid the hallway panel aside and opened the hidden safe. Not many people know it exists. Fewer know what lives inside. Birth certificates, medical proxies, life insurance policies, one envelope from my late father that I still have not opened, and one thick blue folder with her name stamped in gold. Emily Lynn Bennett, Irrevocable Trust. I set it up during her junior year of college. She had just crawled out of that mess with the guy who called himself an artist and said open relationships made him wise. He broke her down. She thought nobody would ever love her for real. I can still see us parked in the university lot, her face buried in her hoodie, sobbing into the sleeve. She said, "I just want to feel safe for once, Dad." So I made it official. I built a safety net that did not depend on anyone's mercy, including mine. Tuition handled. Graduate school covered. First condo deeded in her name. She cried when I put the documents in her hands. And now I was the one left outside, treated like a trespasser trying to crash her new life. People forget what irrevocable means. It does not mean untouchable. It means planned. The way I structured it gave Emily the full benefit of the assets, but it also drew a hard line. Any act that is knowingly harmful to the person who created the trust opens a revision window, especially if it happens before the marriage milestone that makes her legally independent of me. Plain language. If she crossed that line before she was legally married, I was not required to keep the water running. A security guard holding a clipboard with my photo under Do Not Admit is not a simple oversight. It is an intentional shove. I leaned back in my chair with the folder open across my lap and flipped through the originals. The ink had faded, but my pencil notes were clear. I mark up everything like a teacher who is always a little worried he will miss something. Arrows. Plain English summaries. A red tab by section 7b. Lisa never asked about 7b. Emily did not either. But I remember exactly what my attorney said the day we wrote it. If this clause ever triggers, it means she has chosen a new family. They can accept the financial responsibilities as well. It was not a threat. It was a boundary. Now it felt like a fuse. I closed the folder and locked it back in the safe. Not out of fear. Out of timing. Retaliation would be emotional. This needed to be clean. Sometimes the loudest message is silence, and you let the quiet do the work. I did not know what was happening under that tent in real time. I was already gone. But later I heard how it went from people who were there, and from someone who does not miss much, the groom's father, Thomas Reed. A woman in a red Fascinator leaned toward her date as the quartet played and whispered, "Where is her dad?" It was barely a breath over the clinking glasses, but Thomas heard it. He hears the lines people try not to say out loud. He stood near the back of the aisle with his arms folded behind him like he was reviewing a deal sheet, instead of watching his only son get married. His face gave nothing away. That is his default. But his eyes were working, scanning the room the way a man does when his money and his name are on the program. The first thing he clocked was the guard. Not a venue staffer. A private detail guy. Earpiece. Mirrored sunglasses in the shade. Clipboard. A rented wall. Odd for a wedding this size. Odder that the groom's father had not signed off on it. He leaned toward his ex-wife. "Linda, did you know they hired security?" She blinked. "No, I thought you did." He said nothing. He just filed it away. Red flag number 1. Then he saw the second. An empty chair, front row, family side. Not just empty. It had a single white rose laid across the seat. In his world, that is not a tribute. That is a placeholder. A quiet apology to someone who was supposed to be there and was not. Emily stood under the canopy, holding her smile the way a person holds a heavy box. The makeup artist dabbed at her forehead with military focus. The smile never reached her eyes. She was not glowing. She was managing. Then Lisa appeared, all bubbles and nerves, handing out cover stories dressed up as small talk. "He is sick," she told one guest. "Last-minute work conflict," she told another. "He is watching the live stream," she said to the photographer, throwing in a soft laugh like it was cute. Too many versions. Too fast. Rookie mistake. That was how Thomas put it when we spoke later. He watched Lisa the way he watches competitors who sweeten bad numbers with buzzwords. She was smooth. She was not careful. Their eyes met once. She lifted her glass and smiled too wide. He did not smile back. He walked into the side garden, took out his phone, and made a call. Natalie, he said to his assistant, Natalie Brooks. Bride's last name is Bennett. Mother is Lisa Carter. I want everything. Full background. Real time. You have 4 hours. Natalie did not ask why. Natalie never asks why. He pocketed the phone and drifted back toward the tent, but he stayed near the entrance and watched the guard. Guests were waved through with a shrug. No real checks. What bothered him was the clipboard itself. 3 pages thick. Way too much paper for a guest list under 100. He walked over like he owned the place. Excuse me, he said, even tone, not a hint of heat. The guard straightened. Sir, do you work for the venue or for the family? The family. Which side? The guard hesitated. Brides. Thomas nodded once. Who authorized your assignment? I was contracted through Sentinel Protective, the guard said. All instructions came from the bride's mother. Did they give you specific targets? Thomas asked. The guard did not answer right away. He looked down at the clipboard. He looked at the tent. He looked back at Thomas. And he stayed quiet. Thomas stepped in a little closer to the guard. Later he told me exactly how he said it. Calm. Flat. I am not asking as a guest, he told the man. I am asking as someone who could own a piece of your security company by Monday if I decide it is worth my time. The guard blinked and caved. One person was flagged. Denied entry. Who? I cannot say. Did the man try to come in? A beat. Yes. Briefly. He left. Peacefully. Thomas's jaw tightened. What did he look like? The guard glanced down like he needed the clipboard to jog his memory. Tall. Gray hair. Black suit. Looked like he could have been her father. Thomas did not answer. He turned and walked back toward the tent. He was not looking at a wedding anymore. He was looking at a deal with hidden terms, and he does not sign deals without reading the fine print. He could not yet name what Lisa had done, but he knew something was rotting under the pretty surface. His whole life was built on finding rot before it spread. He sat down, looked once at the empty front row chair, the one that should have been mine, and typed a short note on his phone. Trust activity, bride's side. Watch transactions. Pull legal records. Then he looked up, gave the camera a polite smile, and waited. The truth has a way of showing up, especially when you lock out the one person who could keep the lie standing. Exactly 1 hour and 42 minutes after his call, the documents hit Thomas's inbox as a secured portable document format file. Natalie never misses. For all he knew, she could make nuclear codes vanish. Her background is foggy and expensive, which is how Thomas prefers it. He opened the file in the groom's lounge. The wedding buzzed beyond the doors, muffled laughter, clinking glass, a violinist grinding through Pachelbel's canon like rent was due. None of that mattered. What mattered glowed on the screen. First, Emily Bennett. No biological father listed on the birth certificate. Not unusual. Thomas had seen that before. The next page caught him. A legal adoption finalized in 2003. Adoptive father, Mark Bennett. Same last name. Same man Natalie's facial recognition sweep had tagged at the gate 3 hours earlier and marked as do not admit. Second, education. Tuition for the University of Illinois, undergraduate and graduate, paid in full from a Section 529 college savings plan. Owner, Mark Bennett. Apartment leases, co-signed by Mark. First credit card, an American Express account with Mark as co-signer. Vehicle title, connected to Mark's insurance. Dental surgery claim, covered under Mark's policy. Even the venue they were standing in had been booked through a business account for Bennett Design and Property Solutions, Limited Liability Company. Principal agent, Mark Bennett. Third, the big one. An irrevocable trust filed 3 years ago. Beneficiary, Emily Lynn Bennett. Source of funds, Mark Bennett. Thomas checked the guest list. No Mark Bennett anywhere. No father of the bride. No seat reserved. The family table showed 3 names: Lisa Carter, Emily's godmother, and a cousin. He opened the family itinerary that Lisa had sent the planner. All responses cross-checked. Hotels blocked and booked. One name missing across every line item. This was not a slip. It was a scrub. Thomas leaned back and pressed his lips together. This was not, we drifted apart. This was not messy divorce stuff. This was a deliberate cutout. They had removed the man like an appendix, tossed because he was inconvenient, and they had built the party on money he supplied. Thomas knows men like me. Quiet, methodical, low drama. We do the heavy lifting and do not ask for a spotlight. The problem is people mistake quiet for weak, right up until it costs them. He clicked into 2 more tabs. Lisa's recent spending. A sharp rise about 6 months back. Bridal services, venue deposits, designer fittings. Every spike lined up with the trust's most recent disbursement. Natalie had flagged the overlaps. Thomas cross-checked dates against the event calendar. Every payment Lisa made fell within 24 hours of a transfer out of Emily's trust. His eyes narrowed. Emily had not only used my name, she had used my money, and now she was marrying into a family with money of its own, like the old benefactor could be shoved into a closet and forgotten. Thomas let out a slow breath and closed the laptop. This was not sloppy manners. It was a plan. Someone, most likely Lisa, had staged a perfect picture where the man who poured the foundation did not exist. He stood and straightened his cufflinks. No one builds a life on someone else's concrete without checking the mix. And this wedding, the whole polished scene, sat on a bad pour. He stepped out of the lounge, weaving past servers and florists who had no idea a different kind of ceremony was starting. He moved like he was back on a trading floor, decisive, quiet, scanning for angles. His next call would not be to Natalie. It would be to his son. One question only. Not about flowers. Not about food. About what my future in-laws really knew about the family they were marrying into. Thomas found Lisa alone at the bar, nursing a second glass of Sauvignon Blanc with that careful poise she wears like a uniform. She is the kind of climber who can make social steps look like ballet. Hair perfect, dress tailored to read, expensive without effort. A laugh tuned to each guest's tax bracket. She did not see him until he was beside her. Lisa, Thomas said, cool as ice. She startled, recovered, and pasted on a smile. Thomas, is everything all right? Is the lighting too harsh in the tent? I can speak to the planner. He lifted a hand, just a small stop sign in the air. Thomas told me he did not waste words with Lisa. Why was your husband not invited? He asked her. No warm-up. No small talk. She blinked. I what? Mark Bennett. Your husband. Emily's father. The man who paid for this venue, your daughter's education, and, likely, that wine in your hand. Her throat moved like she swallowed glass. He has been distant, she said too fast. We thought it would be less complicated. We. Thomas repeated, weighing the word. You and Emily? She hesitated. It has been a tense year. Things got strained. He can be sensitive about. Sensitive. Thomas kept his voice flat. Is that our word now? He tipped his head, watching her fidget. You cut him from the list, he said. You approved security to keep him at the gate. You turned the father of the bride, the spine of this entire day, into a ghost, and you thought no one would notice. Her laugh cracked. I think this is being blown out of. No, he said, stepping a half-inch closer. What is out of proportion is staging a wedding on a man's generosity while pretending he does not exist. Color drained from her face. Her grip on the glass went white at the knuckles. He leaned in, softer, but every word landed. You do not erase the man who poured the foundation and expect the house to hold. That is not only cruel. That is stupid. Her mouth opened, maybe to argue, maybe to beg, but he had already turned away. Thomas walked back toward the tent. The sun had slipped behind the trees. Long shadows across rented lawn. He called his son. Hey, Dad. Ethan answered, bright, clueless. Meet me behind the catering tent, Thomas said, voice like cold steel. Now? A beat. Is everything okay? Thomas did not repeat himself. He hung up. He told me later that storms do not always arrive with thunder. Some come in on quiet feet, cut a straight line, and leave wreckage without a raised voice. He stepped to the front and spoke one sentence that reset the whole day. This wedding is suspended. Effective immediately. He did not shout. He did not need to. The sentence did the heavy lifting. The officiant froze mid-prayer. The quartet coughed on a note. Someone in the third row let out a clean, sharp gasp. A glass touched the ground and rang like a bell. Emily stood under the flowers in a lace gown Lisa swore would sell the idea of elegance. She blinked like a patient shaking off anesthesia. Wait, what? What do you mean, suspended? Exactly what it sounds like, Thomas said. Ethan had not moved. His face could not decide if this was an intervention, an ambush, or a bad rehearsal gag. Thomas did not look at him. He locked eyes with Emily. "I want you, the officiant, and your mother by the side tent," he said. "Now." Emily tried to laugh it off. "No, we are not doing this. What is this?" Lisa materialized at her elbow, panic polished to a shine. "Thomas, please. This is not the time. You made time to hire a security team," he said. "You can make time for this." He walked. People followed. It felt less like a party and more like a verdict being read. Behind the catering tent, in the shade, Thomas spread the paperwork on a folding table. A printed guest list, trust documents, a summary of disbursements, the venue lease, vendor payment confirmations. Every road pointing back to Mark Bennett or Bennett Design and Property Solutions, Limited Liability Company. Emily's name was all over the forms. My name was on every check. Lisa's face turned the color of her wine. "You built this event with his money," Thomas said. "Invitations, venue deposit, flowers, even the down payment on your condo." Emily's eyes went wide. I did not know he paid for all of it." "You did not know?" Thomas repeated. "You signed vendor confirmations under his limited liability company. Your initials sit beside the approvals." Emily's gaze snapped to Lisa, who stood rigid and bloodless at the mouth. "And this," Thomas said, sliding the last page forward, "is the security order. The instruction to deny Mark Bennett entry. Signed by your mother. Initialed by you." Emily's breath caught. "That is not. I did not." "It is time-stamped," he said. "Digitally. By you. Do not insult me." "I thought it was for someone else," she whispered. "An ex-someone from my mom's side." Thomas tapped the initials with one finger and let the silence do the rest. "Thomas told me he did not waste time." "They are yours," he said to Emily and Lisa, tapping the pages. "You approve this. You signed off on removing the one person who, by every legal and moral measure, built this day." Lisa finally stepped in, voice high and brittle. She did not understand what she was signing, Thomas. It was a planning packet. "You do not bury a lockout order inside a flower budget," he snapped back. "You perform social surgery. You cut the man out of the family story and hoped no one would see the stitches." The officiant eased backward, suddenly unsure where to stand. Emily's lip trembled. Ethan kept his hands in his pockets, face blank, a groom waiting for someone to yell "cut" on a scene that had gone off script. "I did not mean to hurt him," Emily said, voice breaking. Thomas's tone went colder. "You did more than hurt him. You took from him. You turned his love into a transaction. You used his protection, his legacy, and his quiet as tools. Then, when it did not match your mood board, you deleted him like a typo." Mascara ran. Lisa stood stiff, angling her body as if she could block the documents from the light and make them less true. "I would rather call off this wedding," Thomas said slowly, "than let my son marry into a family that treats the people who raised them like receipts to be tossed." No one spoke. The silence stopped feeling holy. It felt like fallout. The flawless dress, the curated playlist, the smiling guests, all of it started to crack in public, and there was no putting it back together. The party turned into exhibits on a table. Emily's heels struck the stone as she stormed from the tent, veil snapping in the breeze like a small white flag. Guests opened a path. The disc jockey slid the volume down to almost nothing. The violinist packed his bow without a word. Under the arch of string lights meant for picture-perfect first dances, Emily's hands shook while she scrolled. Group chats, the florist, the planner, the maid of honor. Then the name she had avoided for weeks. "Dad." She pressed call. Straight to voicemail. She cursed under her breath and typed instead, "Please come back. I did not know. I thought the security was for someone else. Please." No read receipt. Only silence. Behind her, Lisa followed, cheeks hot with anger and the panic of a public relations disaster coming apart in real time. "He will not answer," Lisa said, half a scoff, half out of breath. "You know how he gets. Always so sensitive. So dramatic. The minute anyone questions him, he acts like a martyr." "Mom, stop," Emily said, eyes red. "No, I will not stop. He has always carried that chip on his shoulder, like we owe him worship for being the man who stayed. Staying does not mean he gets to control everything." Emily stared at her mother, the center beam of her beliefs suddenly feeling like sand. "I asked you to handle logistics," she said, voice shaking. I did not ask you to banish him. Lisa crossed her arms, finding her balance like a gymnast. Do not pretend you were blind. You signed every packet I handed you. I told you we needed security and discretion. You told me we were protecting against old boyfriends, Emily whispered. You did not say my father. Thomas stepped onto the patio then, posture exact, voice colder than the wind that cut through the hedges. You still call him sensitive, he said. Lisa turned, face hard. He is not sensitive, Thomas said. He is dignified. That is something the two of you do not seem to understand. Emily looked at him like a student who just discovered she had failed a test she thought she aced. Thomas stopped short of comfort. He saw the clipboard at the gate, Thomas said. He knew what it meant. He knew who signed. He did not shout. He did not perform. He left. Quietly. Because you, he looked at Emily now, were not ready to admit what you had become. I did not mean to erase him, Emily choked out. You did not have to mean it, Thomas said. You only had to allow it. Lisa took a step. Thomas, this is between our family. No, he cut her off. This is about integrity. If you cared about that, you would be chasing your husband right now, not rewriting the script to cast yourself as the victim. Emily sagged against the siding, wedding dress gathered in both hands, makeup streaked. The sunset photos by the pond and the toast on the dock were nothing now. The story was out of her hands. The man she counted on to show up without needing applause had done what he always does, showed up, read the room, and walked away without a scene. Somehow that hurt more, because Lisa was wrong. I was not being sensitive. I was not there. By the time the black sedan rolled up outside the venue, the sun was gone. Most guests had escaped into the night, calling it a delayed reception to make the silence sound less awkward. A few clusters lingered, sipping warm wine and whispering as their eyes slid toward the bride by the fountain. Dress wrinkled, bouquet dropped like a used napkin at her side. Inside the hall, Lisa tried to salvage what she could. Her phone buzzed without mercy. Relatives asking whether to stay, the planner begging for decisions, the caterer asking for direction. She was in the middle of pretending to arrange a new schedule when the doors swung open again. It was not a florist walking in this time. Not a vendor. A man in a slate gray suit, hair neat, black leather briefcase in one hand. He moved like someone who understood he was unwelcome and also understood he could not be turned away. Lisa Carter, he asked, voice calm and official. She turned, already on guard. Yes. My name is Caleb Morgan. I represent the Bennett Family Irrevocable Trust. Her smile slipped. I am sorry, what? He opened the briefcase with quiet ceremony, pulled out a thick envelope, and handed it to her with white gloves. He was that kind of lawyer, precise and steady. This is formal notice of a trust freeze pending an internal ethics review, he said. Effective immediately. Lisa tore the envelope open. Her eyes hit the first line and her breath caught. What does this mean? It means, he said, that all current and future disbursements to Emily Lynn Bennett are paused. Expenses tied to today's event will be audited. Any vendor paid with trust assets may face recovery if we find fraud, misrepresentation, or any manipulation of the grantor's intent. You cannot do this, she said. The documents carry your signatures, he replied, flat as a level. And your daughter's initials. Thomas stood a few feet back with his arms folded, not smug, just settled, like a man who knew the numbers finally lined up with the truth. This entire day was built on his name, Thomas said quietly. His money, his patience, his silence. Lisa turned on him, sharp and desperate. He would not cut off his own daughter. He loves her. Thomas raised one eyebrow. And how did you repay that love? She could not answer. She clutched the papers to her chest like a life vest made of ink and shame. I can fix this, she muttered. No, Caleb said, already repacking his briefcase. You cannot. This is not about mending feelings. This is about breaching fiduciary duty. A trust is not an automated teller machine. It is an agreement. You broke it. Both of you. Emily walked in as he finished. She slowed, taking in the lawyer, Thomas, and her mother, who looked older by the second. Is this real? Emily asked. Thomas gave one slow nod. Very. Emily stared at the envelope in Lisa's hands. Those same hands had guided her through hair tutorials, test jitters, and first boyfriend breakups. Now they held a notice that said her future, money and otherwise, was evaporating. This was never your money, Thomas said, his voice lower now, cleaner. It was not a gift. It was a legacy. Legacies are not inherited. They are earned. Emily swallowed. He will not even speak to me. For 20 years, Thomas said. He gave everything and asked for nothing. Today, when it was his turn to be included, you gave him a security guard in silence. Outside, the lawyer's car started. Red taillights hung in the doorway like punctuation at the end of a sentence nobody wanted to read. Lisa finally sat down. Her hands trembled. The weight of her choices was heavier than the stack of linen-wrapped favors no one would carry home. Thomas did not gloat. He did not posture. He watched. In his world, people who cut out the man who poured the foundation were always stunned when the building fell on them. They arrived at 9:47 p.m. Emily sat in the back seat. The veil was gone. Hair unpinned, frizz catching the last of the humidity. Mascara clung to the corners of her eyes like regret. Lisa rode up front in that tailored champagne dress she had picked to compliment the bride without competing. Ethan drove. He had not said much since Thomas laid everything out for him like a doctor reading scans to a patient who already knew. To Ethan's credit, he did not defend anyone. He did not ask for softer words. He said, I want to see him. So they came to my house with the brick mailbox. The copper pipe wind chimes Emily gave me on Father's Day when she was 9 sang a thin note in the breeze. The porch swing we painted one summer with leftover Sherwin-Williams and a cheap brush waited under the eaves. My house. Not theirs. Not anymore. The driveway held only my pickup under the sycamore. Lights off. Curtains drawn. The place felt like it was holding its breath. Emily was out of the car first, heels clacking across the pavement. She ran to the door and knocked hard. Then harder. Dad. She called, voice breaking. Please talk to me. I did not know she signed it. I did not know the trust would be frozen. I did not mean for any of this. Silence. She rang the bell. Once. Twice. Lisa joined her, arms folded like a shield. Mark, enough. You have made your point. Do not humiliate us further. Ethan stayed near the car, watching like a man at a funeral he never expected to attend. Inside, I sat in the dark with both hands around a mug of coffee. Not whiskey, not scotch, just black coffee. The heat in my hands felt steadier than any bottle ever has. My phone buzzed on the side table. Once. Then again. A third time. I ignored the first two. I answered the third. It was Thomas. They are at your door, he said, calm as ever. All three, just like I told you. I said nothing. Do not answer it, he added after a beat. I stayed quiet and looked across the room at the bookshelf. I looked at the shelf and found the one that always stops me. The framed drawing in crayon. The crooked heart. The child letters that say, me and Dad. The colors have dulled a little, but that heart still burns like a flare in a dark field. On the phone, Thomas kept his voice low. She is crying, he said. But do not mistake it for contrition. This is salvage. They are not here to apologize. They are here to rewind the tape and pretend today did not happen. I know, I said. Outside, the knocking went on. Please, Dad. Emily called through the door, voice breaking. I did not mean it. I did not know. I would never have let her do it. Please, come out. We can talk. We can fix this. I stood up and walked to the door. I stopped a few inches short. I did not put my face to the glass. I did not touch the deadbolt. I just stood there and listened. Lisa whispering about lawyers and optics. Emily crying harder. Ethan saying nothing at all. Then I turned away. No anger. No scene. Just a steady walk to the back room where the papers were laid out in clean stacks. Trust amendments, account closures, foundation charter forms. No courtroom. No crowd. Just pens and facts. In that moment, I understood the only power that mattered was not in what I could shout. It was in what I could refuse to say. It was the unanswered door. The quiet house. The simple truth that, for all the pleading and spin, they had already written me out. Now the pen was in my hand. The next morning, there was no wedding hangover. No vendors rolling cases. No brunch chatter. Only a street that felt sorry for itself. At Lisa's house, Emily opened the front door wearing a borrowed sweatshirt and satin pajama pants. Half bride, half orphaned. Her eyes were swollen from sleep or crying or both. Lisa stayed upstairs, pretending to be busy, like a second act could still be staged. At Emily's feet sat a small envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just her name, written in neat handwriting she knew as well as her own. Calm. Maybe too calm. She bent, picked it up, and opened it like it might bless her or burn her. Inside was a photograph. She is 5 years old, dressed as a tree in the kindergarten play. Green face paint smeared on both cheeks. Arms tucked in like a tight bud. She is asleep on my chest, face pressed into my jacket. I look younger. My hair is darker. I look tired and proud at the same time. There is no pose, no grin, just presence. Under the photo is one line in blue ink. I was never just the man who paid. I was the man who stayed. No signature. She stood on the cold porch with bare feet, fingers locked on that paper like a rope. Then she folded, slow and quiet. No wails, no dramatic collapse. Just a kneel to the step, as if the concrete could drink her shame and give her time back in exchange. Tom does not bargain. Back at my house, the morning sun slid across the table and over the paperwork. No music, no television, only the sound of a pen moving. The top page read, Beneficiary Amendment, Bennett Trust. I signed without hesitation. The new beneficiary was not a person. It was a foundation. I had filed the name the night before when the doorbell finally went silent. The Stay Project, a nonprofit for the fathers who teach daughters to drive and tape bandages over skin knees. For the ones who pay for wisdom teeth and clarinets and late-night pizza during exam week. For the men who get left off guest lists with no explanation. For the men whose loyalty gets mistaken for servitude. I did not expect a movie ending. I did not expect apologies or promises. I was not bitter. I was not looking for revenge. I was finished. It felt cleaner than rage. On the last page, above the notary line, I wrote one extra sentence in the margin. Not for Emily. Not for Lisa. Not for any lawyer. For me. To be present is not weakness. It is endurance. I set the pen down, closed the folder, and carried it to the safe. When I slid it inside, I saw the old drawing again. Me and Dad. 2 stick figures. A misspelled love. I did not cry. I did not smile. I turned off the light, brewed fresh coffee, and sat at the table. Alone, but not defeated. When the world forgets the man who stayed remembers himself.